To this now, the MK party is asking Chief Justice Mandisa Maya to postpone an upcoming Judicial Service Commission sitting. This is to allow it more time to file its application for leave to appeal the Western Cape High Court ruling preventing Dr John Hlophe from attending Monday's meeting. MK party Chief Whip in Parliament is Mzwanele Manyi. He's in studio with me tonight to discuss this. Mr. Manyi, good evening to you. And thank you very much for your time. I'd like to start the conversation with a different matter that you may not necessarily come here for, but it is a massive story in the country, the Lusigisi massacre. Yeah. As a party represented in Parliament, what are your thoughts about what has happened here?
Yeah, and no, the very first thing for us as MK party, we would like to convey our most sincere condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones in this senseless killing of people. For us as the MK party, we are very worried about the lack of intelligence in this country, because all these murders were very clear that it's things that would have been planned somewhere and then executed. And for the intelligence not to know anything about this, it just shows how much at risk this country is. So for us as MK party, we are calling for the strengthening of the intelligence in this country. I mean, this thing, I'm sitting at home, I can tell you the pattern. It started in KZN at one point, that every now and then, massive killings there. And thanks to Mkwanazi seem to have gotten this thing, some control of sorts there. And now it has moved to the Eastern Cape. So clearly this thing is looking at all the vulnerable areas, and we don't have anybody looking after us. Yeah. We've got a very weak intelligence. Police have got all the armory, but no one is telling them where to go, when, and all of that. So indeed, we put the thing on the intelligence, that if we had proper intelligence, this wouldn't be happening. This would be nipped in the bud. They will be caught while plotting. But our intelligence gets to know the news at exactly the same time as all of us on TV. What a shame.
All right. Thank you for those words. Let's discuss now why we've invited you here. It is on the basis that you are asking for the JSC to postpone its sitting, which is scheduled for the 7th of October. That's next week, Monday. What's the basis for that?
A few things. Firstly, contrary to popular belief, MK party respects rule of law. MK party respects the Constitution. MK party is saying, in the first instance, the whole issue, the whole shebang about Dr. Hlophe, him not being allowed to serve in the JSC, that whole discussion is in itself constitutional in the first instance. And the reason we say this is because if you go to the Constitution itself, Section 47, that clause is very clear about who cannot be a member of Parliament in the first instance. And in that clause was very clear that it's not expecting all angels to be members of Parliament. It had its own cutoff of its tolerance. And where the tolerance starts and stops with the Constitution is if you had been incarcerated for 12 months and so on, so you can't be a member of Parliament up until 5 years post that period. Now, Judge Hlophe has never been incarcerated even for 1 day.
But he's impeached.
The Constitution says nothing about that. This is the issue, because the issue of impeachment would have arisen at the time of drafting the Constitution. Those that drafted the Constitution, you cannot tell me that they didn't know about the thing called impeachment when they put the issue of the JSC in the first instance in the Constitution. So this would have been known. So it's not like this was not known. It was known, and a call was made that it's not an issue, as it were, because if it was an issue, it would have been there. So that's the first thing. That's the issue here at hand right now is a very simple issue. The JSC has got a panel which has to tick all the boxes in terms of its constitution. The panel, the JSC panel of 23 odd members, must have advocates, must have attorneys, must have members of society, of academia and so on. But importantly, it must also have a component of the National Assembly. Now that National Assembly is also not just left to chance. It's regulated how that part is composed. And the regulation is very simple. it should not be less than 50 of that component of the National Assembly. Constitution says no less than 50% of the members of that must come from the opposition parties. Now, the arrangement that was submitted to the JSE met those requirements. With the removal of Dr. Hlophe in that scheme of things, that equation is messed up. So therefore, the proper constitution, as envisaged in the constitution, is being violated by the removal of Dr. Hlophe there. So we are saying, if they proceed on those bases, then it means all the decisions that will be taken, they will be tarnished decisions because they'll be taken with a structure that has failed to meet the constitutional master in terms of how it should look like. So all we're asking is a very reasonable thing. We're saying, postpone these interviews that are scheduled for the 7th, because, in fact, when we're saying that two things were at play, one was the review application, which is at the Western Cape High Court, or Part B, that we're waiting for, and the other was the AfriForum application at the Constitutional Court. I don't know if you know, Xoli, I'm going to make breaking news for you. Breaking news. That application of the AfriForum has been kicked out of the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court said, don't waste our time here, get lost, go play in the traffic. They kicked them out on two grounds. First, they say to them, this nonsense that you're bringing here does not engage the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court. That's the first thing they say. Secondly, they say to them, the direct access that you want here is not even warranted. So please, don't waste our time, get lost. Okay. So that one is gone. And we think that should set the tone for what should happen in that review application. And the reason they said all of those things is because the Constitutional Court is clear that the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, a law that is above even the courts, is very clear on this matter. So the Constitutional Court says, what is it that we want us to discuss when this thing has got no, it's common cause that the man qualifies to be there? Okay. Why want to waste our time?
All right, Mr. Manyi. We will obviously call AfriForum to get reaction from their side based on what you are saying.
Yeah.
But
I'll send you the judgment.
But here's the issue. Thank you for that. But here's the nub of what you are asking for, and that is the postponement of the JSC from conducting its work. It is the court judgment of the Western Cape High Court that says the absence of one member of the JSC does not constitute that meeting does not meet a quorum. It is your own statement this afternoon that says the absence of one member of the JSC can obviously not affect its quorum. And so, let's get to grips with what you are asking for and tell me if I'm wrong, because the question that perhaps we should be asking of you is the impact of the disqualification of one of its members and therefore the composition of this very structure called the JSC. Isn't that what this is about? Meaning then, if you agree with what I'm saying, you're possibly being unreasonable because the JSC can still meet and conduct its work, barring this one member.
Yeah, let me say to Xoli, I hear you very well. We're not dealing here with quorum issues. From a quorum point of view, there's no issues in terms of, 1 out of 23 or out of 20 is a non-issue. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is the constitutionality of the constitution of this 23. This has got to be duly constituted. And it's duly constitution is being constituted, is regulated. It's prescribed how it should be. It's not by chance. It's not like they say any 23 members. No. It's 23 members made up of these components. And it goes deeper. It says this particular component, for a reason, this particular component from the National Assembly can't just be anybody, can't just be 100% one way or the other. It's got to be 50% ruling party, 50% opposition party.
Yes.
This is to ensure that once a judge is recommended and all of that, there has been transparency, there has been accountability, and there is no one that's going to say there was favoritism or anything. Now, if you have a situation like you have now, where the ruling party has got like 60% of the representation against the constitution, we are just plunging into illegality.
Okay.
Why do you want to do this?
All right.
And this
You've
is why,
given me-
by the way, let me conclude this point. This is why, under general application of the law, you would have a known thing that, no, you can't interdict, you can't appeal an interdict. But when an interdict is this flawed, it then goes into the category of creating exceptional circumstances. And this particular interdict, it creates such exceptional circumstances that warrant it to be appealed.
Okay. The JSC, I can tell you tonight, based on a conversation I had with one of the officials at the Chief Justice's office, they are meeting tonight.
Yeah.
In all likelihood, you will possibly get your response as to whether or not that meeting will be postponed or not. And if it is a no against you, what's your next course of action, very briefly?
Two things. One, we'll use two legal processes. The first legal action that we're going to do, we're going to interdict that sitting, because we will argue that that sitting violates the Constitution for the reasons as explained. The second thing, we're going to do a mass protest. People of South Africa who have put this Constitution into place, when it's being trampled on like this, have got to stand up and defend this Constitution. So we're calling on all the forces of the MK party to be ready, that when they refuse a reasonable request like this, to say postpone until all of these processes are clear, we're calling on all our people to come and make sure that we stage a peaceful protest so that no sitting happens. This is our position.
Mr. Manyi, thank you very much for your time.